Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sustainability Spiral. I'm Ella,
And I'm Kim.
and this is the podcast where we take you through sustainability's hottest topics, pun intended.
On today's episode, we're diving headfirst into the biggest sporting event of the summer, FIFA World Cup, and not diving for a free kick. This week, we're joined by the wonderful Dominique Santini, who's going to talk us through the intersection of sports, sponsors, and sustainability.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at the Sustainability Spiral, and make sure you hit follow on your favourite podcast player app so you never miss a spiral. Should we get into it?
Let's get into it. Oh, Ella, how are you feeling?
There's too many words, like devastated, disappointed, heartbroken.
Are you spiraling? I feel like this is like a big old spiral.
It is, but do you know what? I have to say I've been pulling myself out of it because, like, fair play to the boys. They got to the semi-finals, and that is like impressive. We've got to give them their flowers for what they did.
I know. RIP to our dreams of winning the World Cup 2026,
I know.
but long live our dreams of winning the World Cup 2030, 2034,
It's coming home.
2038.
It's coming home. And 2028 Euros in the UK. I feel it.
It shall come home. It shall come home.
2028 is our year.
I know. Sad that it's over, but I have loved everything around the World Cup. It's been a lovely couple of weeks. And as sustainability Huns, we have been loving going into all of the like fun facts and figures about the World Cup. And we are so excited today to be joined by our wonderful first guest on the podcast.
So our guest today is Dominique Santini, and we are so excited to have her on this episode. Dominique has worked in the intersection of sport and sustainability, from designing ESG programs at Formula One to working with clients like the LTA, UEFA, and Formula E.
Whoa.
She has got a master's in international business and marketing, MSc in global sustainability solutions.
Decorated.
I know.
was
How
killed.
many?
That was a hard one.
How many letters do you put after your name in an email is what I want to know.
0.
It's like
Right now, I'm
MSc,
full wave.
MSc. And she's also one of ED's 30 under 30.
Snap.
Hello, fellow class member.
Hi there.
Oh my God, guys, the caliber of women on this call, young women on this call, is insane.
Exceptional. An
Yeah.
exceptional group. But I think it's safe to say you've spent a lot of time thinking about what sustainability looks like in events like the World Cup and how those need to adapt and change in the face of things like the climate crisis. So we're really excited to have you on to talk about the World Cup and football and sport and sustainability. So thank you for
Welcome
having
to the
me. Thank you for coming.
pod.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm also super excited to be your first guest. That's such an honor. So yeah, thanks for having me. And I feel like it's such a
Such a
topical
pleasure.
moment. So yeah, this is great.
Do you watch every single match of the World Cup?
Oh, I can't say that I do. Do you know, it's weird. Working in sport is actually almost better to not be obsessed with sport. In a weird way, right? Because you actually have to work with so many big names and big people behind the scenes that you don't really want to be star-studded. I mean, you want to be passionate about the industry, but yeah, I can't say I'm a super fan of any sport, which
Oh my God.
yeah, I know. There are super fans out there who do work in the industry, but
Yeah.
I like to keep an arm's length between my working day and my leisure time.
Is
Love
it kind
that.
of also like never meet your idols once you like pull the curtain back on this stuff? You're a bit like, ooh, maybe not.
Well, that was a mistake. Yeah. No, I actually haven't had any stonkers in terms of meetings with athletes and celebs. I think everyone's really sane, and because you all work together, you have to remain sane. So everyone's really nice. I think as an industry as well, it's very relational. So it's all about like being a good person and like
Oh.
making sure that you build and maintain relationships. So that's actually a really important part of the industry. So yeah, no one's awful, actually, that I've met at least. I'd
What a
love to
dream.
hear.
lots of people there, but yeah, no. Meet your idols, kids.
Can you tell us who the most famous person is that you've had to meet through work?
Oh, drivers, F1 drivers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that's it, actually. Not
That's
really.
that's pretty
That's
good.
pretty good.
Some CEOs that no, they're not superstars to anyone, but like, professionals.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, I'd love to meet Simone Biles. I think she's so cool. So like as an
The
athlete,
goat.
awesome. Yeah, right.
Mm.
I'd love to meet her. I think she'd be really fun.
Yeah, she's so great. When I was an intern at Sky, we were like walking around the offices and there was just this like absolutely beautiful man walking towards us. And everyone kept looking at him and I was like, oh my God, he's so gorgeous that everyone is like staring at him so much. And then some of the other interns I was with were just like, that's Thierry Henry.
That would be me.
Isn't it
That
good to
would
be
be
oblivious
me.
though? Because otherwise you'd just like lose your.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kim,
Wow.
you're not like the other girls.
I'm not like the other girls. I don't know
You're
who
too
Thierry
cool.
Henry is. That's me just catching flies as he's walking past, like, who is that hottie? Hello. And everyone's like, Kim, that's
I
like
would
one of the most
love if you hadn't
famous.
gone up to him and been like, "Hi, I'm Kim. What's your name?"
I'm an
Don't know who he
intern.
You're cute.
I know. Oh my God. Can you...
Like,
I feel like I have had a real like schooling on football, particularly this World Cup. I like kind of always enjoy watching the big like international football competitions, like particularly in the last like 10 years, like the World Cup and the Euros. But I feel like I don't know what's happened this year. I've gotten like properly invested in it. And like I've been educated about the England-Argentinian rivalry, which we will not get into given the quite raw wounds that are still open. But like the Hand of God goal, I'd never heard of that before, which shows my ignorance in the sporting space. But
it's so much lore. I think that's something that like
yeah.
we don't appreciate when we look at any sport, really. Like when you come at it for the first time. There's so many things, especially in the States now. I don't know if you've seen like all the social media around like guys getting their girlfriends into whatever favorite sport they have by giving them like a Gossip Girl rundown of the lore and like all of the like rivalries and like this is why it's important that this player is going to this team and they hate each other and like all this stuff. And it just like it's actually just a big Gossip Girl world. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I feel like that's why the boys love it.
But I mean, this is exactly what Formula One did with Drive to Survive. Like, this is what got me into Formula One. Was not, no offense. I mean, I think the engineering behind it is really interesting, and the cars are really cool. But it's all the like juicy tea behind the scenes, and the like the TV show is so good because there's all this like gossip, and they're like drama, and you're like, oh my God, and like, yeah, I'm like, that's what gets me into it. I'm like,
yeah,
perfect.
it's a storyline, right? Of like, oh, who's gonna come out on top, and like, oh, so and so did this. Like, it is nail biting, just because of that, really, to be honest.
So dramatic, obsessed,
so dramatic. Sometimes melodramatic, but that's okay.
We're getting into a real tangent here, and we will bring it back to the actual point of this conversation. But have you seen who is performing at the final, like the World Cup final? There's like an opening thing which is like Tom Cruise, Robbie Williams,
Robbie,
and like
him.
some other like rando Americans I've never heard of. And then the halftime performance, because it's like the Super Bowl, is Madonna,
Shout out.
Shakira.
Hello. Well, when she's not at the
Justin-
FIFA stage,
Well, yeah.
to be fair.
I
she
mean, it
loves
had to be
World Cup.
Shakira.
Yeah.
Justin Bieber and
Interesting.
BTS.
So I was looking into this because I was thinking, like, with Justin Bieber, I thought that was quite odd, but then I thought, is it because he's Canadian?
And his Coachella set was pretty incredible.
It was good.
It was very viral.
But then the other artists, like, there isn't linked to the other countries.
Yeah. I think
Apart from
he
Madonna.
needs. So Shakira, I think, is like the Latin American crowd.
Yeah, they're like Mexico, Shakira, that'll do.
I know, but like,
Please, but yeah.
Yeah.
To be fair, she just loves it. She always wants it. She's like, FIFA opportunity, yes. Like,
Such an
you don't
icon.
need to pay me, I'll pay you. I want to be there.
Yeah.
She loves it.
She just books in every 4 years. She does a performance. Like she's booked till 2050. Yeah, I think as well, like BTS is an interesting one because I feel like that's not just, but I think that's a massive international play for like the Asian markets, which are huge fan viewership. Like when you look at like who the fan base is, I think you kind of need to not appease, but definitely appeal to every fan base that you're reaching. I think I want to just circle very quickly back to Tom Cruise performing with Robbie Williams. Does he sing? Does he dance? Is he jumping out of a plane?
Yeah, what's the
What is that?
performance?
What is
Really unsure. So all I saw was just a list of people, and on the list for like the pre-show was Tom Cruise, Robbie Williams, Nicole Scherzinger,
Love that.
Laura Pausini, who I've not heard of, Post Malone, apparently.
Oh my God, they're really
Oh.
going for it then.
Like, oh, this is the like the FIFA closing ceremony, and then the halftime performance is like Madonna, Justin Bieber, Shakira, BTS,
Yeah.
and like curated by Coldplay.
Oh,
Just
what?
like
That's
it, it's, and I think Jennifer Hudson is singing the national anthem.
This
love
is so American.
It's
Just
so
like
know.
American.
but the kitchen sink at it. Like, okay,
I'm
see how this
I'm
goes.
excited. I have to
Yeah, I'm
say,
kind of here for that, to be fair.
it's gotten
There's-
me excited, even though we're not in it.
Yeah, I mean, there's something for everyone, which
Yeah.
I think we have to appreciate, right?
Musical tapas, for sure.
Musical.
Just like
I
low
really
level
hope
for
Tom
everyone.
Cruise
Buffet.
either sings, or do you remember in the Olympics when Daniel Craig and the Queen, in air quotes, jumped out of an airplane? That is
Yeah.
all. I hope he like jumps out of an airplane and then like backflips into the stadium or something.
Yeah. And then just screams, Scientology! Oh, but so much flying,
Well,
which
I
is
was gonna
maybe a
say,
nice segue.
Interesting point.
this World Cup just seems like on a bigger scale, and maybe this is
Mm.
just me being more into it, but it just seems like on a bigger scale than anything before. And I feel like in the last maybe like 8 years, you've seen more and more coverage about like the sustainability of events like
Yeah.
this, but it feels particularly like at the start of this World Cup, there was a lot of chat around the sustainability of having like so many more teams in so many more locations, and it just seems like
Yeah.
bigger, better question mark.
If we got through last night, we would have been like, definitely bigger, definitely
Yeah.
better. And now we're like, bigger and sadder.
I think that there's always the age-old question when it comes to growth and sustainability, and this is for any industry, and specifically on like the corporate side and the economic side. Like, are they mutually exclusive? Can they exist next to one another? Like, how do they influence one another? I think when it comes to the sports industry, there's so much active discussion about growth of sports, because it is really important from like a social aspect, but then the environmental impact of growing a sport is massive.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to be clear about what we're growing and why. And I think what's really interesting is you're absolutely right. It's not just because you're into it this year. It is so much bigger. So this is the first year that it's been hosted in more than one country, first of all.
Yeah.
Secondly, they chose 3 countries and 3
And they're continuing
countries.
that trend again. The
Yeah.
3-country, I don't know if this is like a permanent move now, but they're hosting it across Spain, Portugal, Morocco, which is maybe slightly smaller geographically, more, you know, I don't know, still probably a lot of flying. Plus Argentina and Uruguay as well.
Yeah, so the
next World
South
Cup,
America are
so-
going to have some matches. Europe are going to have some matches. I think in the past there's been a lot of benefits for countries to host World Cups and mega events. That economic benefit is decreasing, because it's really costly to put these sorts of events on. And when you look at like, cost of living and housing crises, a massive influx of tourists, a lot of cities they don't actually have the infrastructure to host. So they need to invest in that up front. And so I have a feeling that part of the reason that they're going to more countries is actually to spread the economic risk, and to make it just a little bit easier for like share
interesting.
the economic burden of hosting, right? But I just want to go back to the thing that you said about the teams, because I think that's actually a really interesting point. So this year is the biggest tournament that they've ever had. And so the World Cup decided to expand the number of teams involved. They used to have 32, now it's 48, which is a massive increase. It's not just like another couple of teams, it's massive. But I do think it's important because it gives underdeveloped countries a platform to put their players and teams and their nation on a global stage, and ultimately build a sport in their countries and get more foreign direct investment and have conversations that are international. There's There's the Cape Verde goalkeeper. I don't know if you guys have seen his story. It's amazing. He was a total unknown before the tournament, 40 years old, which in football terms should be retired. He's a bus driver and an electrician. He plays football like on the evenings the same way that like your friend at work might. But after 4 games, he went from 50K followers on Instagram to 28 million.
No way. That's insane.
That's like life changing.
Yeah.
Life-changing. Like, you know, he put Cape Verde on the map as an investment opportunity. So now it's life-changing. He can now get sponsorship. He can attract investment into grassroots. He can help grow the sport in his country. He's now an ambassador for the country. So think about the geopolitical implications of that. It is really impactful, and like there is a legacy piece to it to grow
Yeah.
sports in underdeveloped nations. So I will say that
And
that's important.
is that the justification for the expansion? Like, I think I'm just curious about the expansion of the teams, the expansion of the geographies. Like, what has been the official FIFA line on the reason as to why they've done that versus like what you think the actual reason is?
I think that the official party line is probably along the economic
Mm,
risk, and spreading it, or, you know, economic gain. We want to spread the love kind of
yeah.
vibe.
Mm,
I do think that there's a lot of commercial incentive to do that. And if I'm being honest, I can understand why they wanted to go to North America. The US does not watch football. They think that American football is the biggest sport in the world. So capturing a sports obsessed nation is really important, right? Did they need to also go to Canada and Mexico? Probably not. Honestly, from an infrastructure perspective, the US definitely has enough stadiums, infrastructure, sports properties, and, you know, systems built to host the World Cup in even in its expanded state. So I do think that there is a level of cash grabbing there probably. But it's really difficult when you don't see you don't know what the actual financials of it all are.
It's interesting how kind of, you know, the World Cup and football is pitched as like not political, but is
Mhm.
inherently deeply political. And I think another really interesting example of that, I'm thinking about the teams and the carbon impact of like teams flying was the Iranian team that wasn't allowed to stay in the US for the World Cup. So to commute from, I think they stayed in Mexico in the end, so to
Yeah.
commute to all of their games from Mexico and back and fly. It's just this inherently like non-political event that's like deeply political. It's like Eurovision, you know?
Mhm.
Not political, but like very political at the
On the
same time.
surface, it shouldn't be, and it's supposed to be this kind of bipartisan, you know, event, but actually it is. And there was a referee from Somalia who didn't get into the country at all. Um, so yeah, and what's interesting is that in the past and historically, FIFA have been relatively removed from politics. This is probably the most involved and the most overstepping I think we've seen in terms of what they allow and what they don't allow. One of the beautiful values that they have upheld very strongly throughout the decades is that everyone is welcome. And we saw that in Qatar. We saw that to an extent in Russia, where, you know, in Qatar they did end up saying, look, people from the LGBT community are welcome in. Like that is actually a really huge statement to have made at that level. So the fact that there are people from different nations that are being treated unfairly and differently because of the host nation, that is something that is, yeah, that's not happened to this level as much before.
And I mean, let's not even get on to the red card situation of it all.
Red card
Let's not
gate? Yeah.
red card game. I did quite enjoy. I was watching the final, not the final, the semi-final that England played in the pub yesterday, and every time, is it Infantino?
Yeah,
The guy,
the video.
yeah, every time he came on, the entire pub just booed, which I
He's
thought was
such a
very
So
English.
many boos.
Yeah, yeah.
And he kind of like loved it. I feel like he was getting booed in the stadium and he just like, if I got booed by that many people, I would be absolutely mortified. And I think I'd have to like run off and like go do some positive like therapy, self-acceptance talk. But he just was like, he
He's
just like
very
didn't care.
he's very Jeff Bezos coded in that way.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. It's just an interesting crowd. There's just so much like there's so much to talk about this in particular. But it was interesting what you were saying around how the World Cup historically has been seen as a way for countries to like boost tourism, get people in. It was a real like economic opportunity, and that is kind of changing into to remove some of that risk. They've kind of tried to diversify where they're hosting it. I also wonder like how much that was linked to kind of Qatar hosting the World Cup, and obviously as a nation that had zero footballing infrastructure but lots of money, they like won the bid, built all these stadiums, like, you know, lots of reported human rights violations obviously denied by Qatar. But I also wonder how much kind of that very bad look fed into them wanting to maybe kind of, you know, diversify some of the risk of the host nations as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think there was a lot of backlash after Qatar for so many reasons. I think what's really interesting about how sport is structured, um, it's really unique. And I think when you look at the way that the World Cup in particular is run, it's a structure that doesn't exist in any other industry, really. So just to kind of lay it all out, and kind of some of the challenges that came up in Qatar, some of the challenges that will always come up, and especially from a sustainability lens, in the unique operational context of this industry, right? There are so many stakeholders involved in putting on a tournament like that. So at the top, you have FIFA, right? They are the rights holder. They own all the commercial rights. So if a match is being shown on TV, they've made a deal with the broadcaster, with the channel that's showing it. If you buy merch or a ticket to a game, they get a cut. Anytime you see the World Cup logo anywhere, FIFA are benefiting from the commercial rights from that. And that office is HQ'd in Switzerland, and that's what they do. It's very much like the corporate team, right? Then to actually host the World Cup, to actually put on a tournament of that size, they actually set up a subsidiary in the host country. So they act as FIFA's operational arm. So it'll be like World Cup 2026, LLC. And this year it's headquartered in Miami. And their job is to basically coordinate the tournament logistics with all 16 cities, right? This year.
Small job
Just,
this year.
no biggie, right? And then, so we've got FIFA, we've got their subsidiary, which runs the World Cup. Then we've got at the national level, you have to coordinate with the football associations, the national federations who are in charge of football in that country. So this year we're looking at US soccer, Canada soccer, and the Mexican Federation of Football. So you've got the national level in the sporting world, and then you've also got the national governments that you have to coordinate with. Then we go one layer deeper, and you're coordinating with host cities. So there's two entities that are mainly involved. So you've got the city's authorities, but then each city also has a local organizing committee that feeds into the World Cup.
It's just too much, isn't it?
Too much. We haven't even got the stadiums. Like,
This is,
you know?
This is taking me back, Kim, to when our old boss once tried to explain the FA to us, and he drew out like a diagram of how the FA works, and it's giving me flashbacks to that. And don't quiz me because I don't remember.
I know, the whole time he was just drawing on this whiteboard, and we were literally like, so like if I was Newcastle United, where would I be in this?
And he was like, nowhere, a separate paper, like
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but I'm following this through. So FIFA subsidiary, national government, and like the FA equivalent.
Yeah.
So national federation, national government.
Then you've got
the city, the local authority, and the local organizing committee. And then you've got the stadiums themselves. And it's funny that you say that
the FA structure is confusing, because it is. Kind of zooming out from football to the entire sports industry, what if I told you that every single sport is structured completely differently?
That
Not
just makes so much
surprised.
sense.
Just
There
like,
is no standardization. Like, it's mental.
That's
why just like streamline, guys?
Just make your life
Same,
easy, guys.
yeah. It feels confusing.
how much like cross-sport collaboration is there? Because I imagine there's lots of very similar challenges, right? In that it's like infrastructure, if you're doing big international events, it's travel, it's freight, it's like food and beverage. Like, how much cross-sporting collaboration do you get? Do they talk to each other, or are they like, no, we're going to do better at this than you? Is it competitive?
You'd think that there'd be like a really competitive nature, but a lot of sports aren't competing against each other, so it's fine. I think what's really interesting is where the similarities and differences start and stop. So let's go to like actually thinking about different sports. So let's take tennis, right? That's a tournament sport. It has the opens, which are run across different countries, but it is a tournament within itself that's like, a month long. That's very different to a Formula One or a Formula E, which is a racing series that has a race every weekend, right? So the format is different. So every single sport is structured differently because every single sport is different in terms of individual versus team involvement,
Mm.
number of teams, like competitive structure. So when you talk about having similar issues, it's weirdly bespoke per sport. And that's where there are some massive challenges when it comes to sustainability, because every area, every problem, there is just no one size fits all. An infrastructure issue that exists in a stadium is very different to that you would find in a circuit a lot of the time, or that you
Yeah.
find in a pool. I think what we're going to start seeing is more coordination across different sports which share certain commonalities, and those commonalities can be one of two things. One, regulators. So, for example, the FIA, who are the motorsport regulator, so they're in charge of regulating Formula E, MotoGP, Extreme E, Formula One, et cetera, like all the motorsports. I think we're going to start to see them bring on partners that span multiple sports and therefore some more coordination across them, um, so that you can implement slightly more standardized solutions or at least plug and play solutions where and when. Um, then the second side of this that I think we're going to see, I hope, and this kind of comes on to what I'm really excited about in sport generally. I think we're going to see sponsors who are working across multiple sports, um, doing more to bring their sponsorship portfolios together, and I hope that that means some really interesting. I think there's space for innovation in terms of sustainability in that realm.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue into the sponsors of the World Cup this year, because something that just kept catching my eye as I was watching the games was that green Aramco just sliding around the side of the pitch, followed by multiple large tech companies and then like insanely impactful consumer brands like Coca-Cola. Um, and I just kept like eyeing it, thinking, how much does that sponsorship cost, firstly? And what, I guess, what are the FIFA checks and balances of sponsorship deals? Like, what do they consider? What kind of brands do they want to align themselves with? That kind of thing.
That's a really interesting question. Every sports rights holder every sports rights holder tackles sponsorship slightly differently.
Mm.
Um, there are many that are very values led. There are many that are very functional, and then there are many that um, can't afford the luxury of choice.
Hmm.
FIFA's not one of those, but I think it's quite nuanced. The sports industry, being a rights holder in the sports industry, it's crazy expensive. I mean, we were just talking about how much it costs to actually set up an event, right? Or be a host city. Something as big as the World Cup. I mean, we've already spoken about how there's 16 cities that are involved and all the different layers of stakeholders that have to be created as separate subsidiaries and the number of people required to resource that. So you need a massive amount of money to put something like this on. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's just the tickets. Tickets account for this much of sports revenue. Yes, you've got ticket revenue, but it's capped, and as well, you don't want to outprice your fans. You don't want you. No one wants empty seats. So you need to make sure that those are, at a ceiling. Media rights is another way to make money in sport. So selling the right to show your match or game on TV. That again has a lot of regulations depending on what countries you're in, especially because there's, state-run broadcast stations and that sort of thing. So then you're kind of left with sponsorship revenue as the biggest piece of pie you can go after. And yeah, I'm not saying it's totally arbitrary, but like it's pretty uncapped as markets go. So what you do to calculate how much a sponsorship is worth is, let's say, like a front of shirt or like a banner or something. You calculate how many times or for how long that's going to be seen by how many people. And therefore, if you were to take like a customer acquisition cost, so for example, for every 100 people that see our logo, 10 of them will think, oh, I need to buy Coca-Cola, right? And therefore you can start to convert it to sales. Now, there are massive discussions in the sports industry around attribution and customer acquisition costs, and it's a very ongoing debate. But that is generally finger in the air how it's done. I think the biggest invisible part of sponsorship that people don't think about, because you don't see it as a fan, you don't see it on TV, is actually hospitality. So you have, when like the camera pans to like Tom Holland sitting in like a really comfy booth, right?
Those are my favorite parts of all matches.
The
The celeb spots. I'm like, it's David Beckham again. Oh my God.
Exactly. So they tend to be part of like hospitality packages, which are these VIP rooms that exist in the stadiums, where they can go in. They have like, this is going to sound really like granular, but they have their own food. They have their own space. It's super private. And it's not just for celebrities. Sponsors pay for those spaces, and they pay for it to be decorated in their, Heineken green or whatever. And they use these games these sporting events to host potential clients and build relationships and schmooze their B2B prospects, etc. So that is actually a massive part of sponsorship packages, especially for B2B brands.
Yeah, because I was thinking with like Aramco, obviously they've got a lot of the time on the pitch. I'm assuming that like calculation of how much the viewers are seeing that is like quite a high, I guess like hit rate. I don't know what
Yeah,
you call it.
exposure rate. Yeah.
Yeah, exposure rate. But then I was like, what is the consumer angle to that? Like, I don't, Joe Blogs isn't going to like go on aramco.com and be like, oh yes,
Oh,
oil
I
and
love
gas,
oil.
like buy that. Yeah. Like, I get it more with consumer brands like Coca-Cola, for example, because then you're like, oh, actually, yeah, I would actually love a Coca-Cola right now. But with the more B2B businesses, it's so interesting that that's actually more the layer that's important to them, is like the hosting around it, like finalizing deals, entertainment, schmoozing. And that almost being like the impressive part of the sponsorship for those potential clients from a more B2B perspective.
I also feel like maybe this is where we start to get into like sports washing territory and like how association of a brand or a country with certain events can like boost your kind of brand or country rep. And I don't know, like Dominique, if you could like explain a bit what sports washing is, and also like maybe give a bit more of a a nuanced view about how it's seen in the industry, if it's a real thing, if it's a worthwhile term. I think obviously Kim and I both come from sustainability outside of sport, so greenwashing has always been a really big term for us. And I've done a lot of work in kind of like avoiding greenwashing in advertising, and I think there's a lot of fear around greenwashing from like big corporates, but sports washing is slightly different from that. I don't know if you could like give us a bit more deets.
Yeah, sports watching is very trendy at the moment, actually. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. But to kind of just explain what it's about, it's basically sports washing is a marketing strategy that entities, countries, organizations use to change public perception. It's a bit morbid, but it actually began in Nazi Germany, who hosted the 1936 Olympics. Um, and broadly speaking, when we look at marketing, just generally, the reason that brands want to become sports sponsors, it tends to be because they want customers to associate their brand with something that they love, right? We want to speak to hearts and minds, not just, the rational, logical consumer. You want to appeal to that emotional element. You need to tie your brand to something that elicits an emotional response. So over time, if your brand is always on the pitch when your favorite team wins, you're going to associate that passion and that excitement for your favorite sport subconsciously to the brand, right? And therefore the perception changes.
So it's more
Um,
like a psychology thing.
it's a behavioral psychology thing, and it's
So
appealing to the fact we're
interesting.
so flawed as humans, and like we're not rational consumers, and
Mm,
we do, yeah, we love excitement and we love being passionate about things, and we're competitive, and so um,
yeah.
yeah, it's definitely psychological.
Mm.
But the sports washing side is when it's used intentionally um, to change a damaged reputation. Um, but I think what's you've both mentioned it's more nuanced than it probably looks. Like we've already spoken about how expensive it is to run an event. Which organizations are big enough, have big enough marketing budgets, and enough reputational challenges that they need to change
Mm.
the way that people interact with them. You're looking at the FMCG brands, you're looking at oil and gas, you're looking at fast food, you're looking at airlines, and those are the exact categories which get the most stick for greenwashing.
But the anecdote that I was just thinking of when you were talking about that there was I'm Geordie. My partner is also very, very Geordie. And Newcastle United Football Club was taken over in 2021 by the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. And I remember at the time, everyone kind of just being a bit like, is this a bit dodgy? Like, should we look into this? Are we happy to just accept all of this money? They purchased like an 80% stake in the club, which is like super significant. But
Mm,
then there was just like massive celebrations because of the investment side of it. And
mm,
they were like, this means that we can like buy loads of amazing players now. And it just opened up like a whole new era of opportunity for the team. I'm saying this like I actually really understood what like that means, but a huge era of opportunity for the team. And I think that people kind of just were a bit like, other teams are doing it, it's kind of fine, and not
mm,
really questioning it because the payoff was like so good.
mm.
I think
Has anyone watched the FIFA documentary on Netflix? It was like FIFA Uncovered.
Mm,
And it's about it particularly focuses on the big corruption scandal a couple of years ago, but in that they talk about how, because obviously it talks about the kind of the Qatar bid for the World Cup, and it talks about how a nation kind of inorganically uses sport to like nation build essentially, because when you take the UK, like sport is so much a part of the fabric of our nation. Look at the last few weeks of the World Cup
mm.
and how it has like arguably brought the nation together in a very positive way. um, but that's all happened in like very organically over a very long period of time. Whereas it's really interesting what is happening in like Qatar as an example with the World Cup, but also lots of kind of Formula One races now being hosted in various different Middle Eastern countries, and how they like kind of maybe slightly more inorganically creating this culture around sport because it is such a good way to bring investment and bring a spotlight onto a country. And
I think you both brought up really, really good points about the exact nuance that I think we're seeing in the industry. Right? So actually, one of my favorite stories to come out of the 2015 Paris Agreement is when Christiana Figueres, who was the executive secretary of UNFCCC at the time,
love her.
oh God, what an icon. She told the story about the way that she negotiated with the Persian Gulf nations. So she was in a room with, the leaders of Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi, and UAE. And she asked them, she was at her wit's end, like, what would it take for you to sign this agreement and commit to it? And they wrote 2 words on a piece of paper and they slid it across the table. Economic diversification.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say like World Cup.
And that was how it was decided, kids.
She's like, hold on.
She's like, I can make that happen.
Yeah.
And she's ringing Shakira. She's like, Shakira girl, we need to make this happen. Yeah. You love the planet.
Yeah, they're like Justin Bieber. Like sadly a much less interesting piece of paper. But yeah, I mean, economic diversification is their absolute priority. So there's a real argument that sport gives those countries a platform to diversify from fossil fuel industries. I think if we go back to what we were saying about hospitality and B2B kind of conversations that you can have, Aramco's sponsorship of the World Cup not only affords them, yes, that kind of the exposure to their brand, but it affords them access to rooms where they can have conversations to change the shape of their economy away from fossil fuels. Now, if they choose to use it that way, they can. And I think that, on a personal level, I don't think that they or really any oil and gas company is doing nearly enough work, not even a fraction of what they should be doing to accelerate the global energy transition. And I do think that there is something important in holding companies like that accountable. However, I can see why people outside the industry would think that sports washing is a really good stick to kind of do that with. But the reality is that rights holders will, like your example in Newcastle, rights holders will rarely turn down a lot of money that ensures the future of their sport. It means that they can continue to exist. It means that they can build. It means that they can bring a lot of positive impact into communities and like you said, opens up a whole new future of opportunities. So I think we need to be just a little bit more nuanced in the way that we condemn these sorts of things. I know that we don't have time. I'm so unbelievably aware of that.
Yeah.
I'm a sustainability professional first and foremost. I'm not here being like, yay, oil. That's just not my stick. So I think the term sports washing has its place. I think we need to be mindful of why these countries are investing in sports. And I think we also need to be mindful that actually as fans, the best thing that we can do as a member of the public, as a consumer and as a fan, the best thing that we can do is actually positively comment, share when a sports entity or a company is doing something to advance the global transition towards sustainability, because otherwise we're not going to get to where we need to go nearly fast enough.
And I feel like it's interesting as well, thinking about the kind of region that seems to be doing a lot of this investment. And to me, that is a region that's already massively feeling the impacts of climate change and what that does to sport. I feel like we started to see that this year as well with the World Cup. From two main aspects from my perspective. First off, hydration breaks, which I know the hydration breaks aren't hydration breaks. They're hydration breaks to put more ad revenue into the US streaming of the matches.
Depends who you speak to, I think, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that's my personal
So
opinion.
so originally it was for player welfare and heat stress, and then they were like, "Let's turn this into ad space."
Wait,
So
what? So it
you're
actually
right.
was for
Yes.
heat stress?
Yeah, because the temperatures are just, insane. You know, the England, Argentina match that was played in Atlanta, it was 33 degrees and something crazy in the 40s, 50s, 60s humidity that it felt like playing in 44 degrees.
No way.
So the hydration breaks are not like
Wait, okay, the media got to me then because I thought that they were put in for extra ad revenue. But I was thinking, surely they actually do need these because these conditions are crazy, like especially at the Azteca, like
Mm.
so stormy, so humid. Like as you said in Atlanta, 33 degrees C with 60% humidity is just absolutely insane. So I'm interested in your view in terms of like how you see the play of sport changing as our climate continues to change and we're just dealing with like way more intense and unpredictable weather patterns, especially as like most sport is played outside.
Yeah, I think we're about to enter an era where sport is changed permanently in terms of structure. Uh,
Mm,
to your point about the hydration breaks, there was actually, super fans who analyze the momentum of games. And what they
mm,
found was with these added hydration breaks, the structure of the game is actually played totally differently. So, um, if England have the ball and then there's a hydration break and they're building momentum, but there's a hydration break that breaks that momentum, it tends to be that it switches to the next team to like after the
wow.
break. So it's
Mm,
actually changing the way that the game is played. And what was originally supposed to be, one of the team assistants running on the pitch with bottles is now a whole coaching moment. So we think that weather and climate isn't affecting the way that games are played and the way that sport functions, but we're literally seeing that unfold in real time. There's just not been, kind of to your point about the media's involvement, there hasn't been someone connecting those dots to say climate change is the reason we did this and therefore this is the consequence. So fans aren't connecting those dots in their head. They just think, oh, things are changing. But I think when you look at wider sport, climate is going to massively disrupt the rhythm, the cycles, and also grassroots pipelines. Like you said, outdoor sports. If the weather is getting more unpredictable and more extreme, we're going to see more cancellations. We're going to see athletes maybe not even being able to travel or make it to the events. We're going to see massive supply chain disruptions. I mean, sport relies on every industry to function. Every other industry, it relies on fashion for merch and kit. It relies on food and beverage, materials, construction, retail, transports, logistics, energy. The the supply chain disruptions that we're going to see across all those industries are going to indirectly and directly affect sport. So I think we're going to see a lot of that. We're also going to see crazy amounts of fan health and safety risks go up. So
yeah,
even
I was thinking
so,
that.
yeah, did you guys see there was like a there was a big controversy that they withdrew, but they basically banned at one point in the lead up to the World Cup. FIFA decided you're not going to be allowed in the stadium with a reusable bottle. You'll have to
Oh
buy
my God.
a bottle.
I saw this and I was like, that is absolutely insane. Because, like you said, if it's 33 degrees C, I think some of the stadiums are like air conditioned, but if you're like looping around in those massive queues, there's 50, 60, 70,000 people, like no access to free drinking water, like that just must be a completely massive health risk that they're just completely overlooking.
Massively. And when like you said, 70,000 people, that's a massive health risk. And you're looking at the demographic of these people and like the amount of time that they're having to spend outside. If you're needing to add extra hydration breaks for a team that's playing 90 minutes, the people who are there all day, like you need to account for their health and safety. So we're going to be seeing a lot of adaptation.
This is like when Ella queued up for Taylor Swift at 8 a.m. in the morning, just in
Yeah,
the
to
height
be
of
fair,
summer.
it was not a good day for it, and one of my friends did nearly pass out. It
Did
was
you
not a
you
good
were outside in the sun the whole time?
Yep. I will never do that again. Taylor Swift is the only person I will ever do that for, like hands down. And even for her, I don't think I would do it again. It was amazing, but never again. Never
Yeah.
again.
I'm
Just
so
like no shade.
No
Just
shade, just heat and
Did you get like
sun.
heat stroke or anything, like sunstroke?
No, I was okay, but obviously you can't take stuff into the stadium.
No.
And we were like stood. So once you're stood, you're like, this is my spot.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to like get out and get any water. They did bring it round eventually, but it was not good. But I feel like it's when people start to feel the effects of these things that it really like hits home, like the heat waves that we've been having in the last like what feels like forever. But people are like the chat is like, okay, another heat wave, it's really hot, this is how it's going to be from now on. Do I need air conditioning? Do I need to adapt to this? Why is it happening? It's climate change. And as much as I am very sad that we're in a place where we're already feeling a lot of these effects, it does really start a narrative around why these things are happening.
I thought that with the Azteca match, because obviously in the UK that was on at was it on at 2?
It was meant to be on at 1, and
It was
then
meant to be on at 1. Meant to be on at 1, and then they moved it to 2 because the storm was so bad that they just were like, we can't have them out there.
And they were like, pubs can stay open, guys, don't worry.
Yeah, keep the pubs open. Climate opportunity, keep the pubs open. Can we talk about wet bulb temperature? Because I love talking about wet bulb temperature. Like, my favourite thing is when people are looking at the weather app and they're like, oh, it's only 30 degrees. And I'm like, go on the feels like temperature. It doesn't matter what the temperature actually is. You need to look at the feels like temperature, because if that's 40 degrees, I don't care that the thermometer is saying 30 because I'm sweating.
What is wet bulb temperature for those like me who don't know?
I think
Kim, you gave me
expert.
Kim gave me a really good explanation of this the other day when we were at this train station, I feel like.
Yeah. Because I was like, it's hot, babes. Okay, I'm not like a scientist, but I'll try and give my explanation. Essentially, the wet bulb temperature reflects both the temperature and then also the humidity. So that's why a temperature reading could be like 33 degrees C, but the humidity is like 70. The wet bulb temperature will be 45, for example. And that's because of the humidity intensity not allowing sweat to evaporate from your skin. So we obviously know that sweating is one of the main ways that our body helps to keep us cool in hot temperatures. If the air is really humid, it just can't evaporate the same way. It's kind of the opposite. This is like such a niche example and so unscientific. But you know, in The Incredibles, when that superhero is like, I need the water in the air. I can't get the water in the air to like do his ice thing.
Oh yeah, Frozone.
Frozone.
That is really not where I thought that example was going.
I think about Frozone all the time.
I love that for you.
But it's the opposite of that. Like, he can't get the water out of the air to create his ice because he's in a fire. We can't get the water off of our skin to cool down because there's too much water already in the air with the wet bulb temperature if the humidity's high. So that's why we then just like sit in this like sticky, uncomfortable, sweaty mess because there's just like nowhere for the water to evaporate to, I think.
I believe it.
Wet bulb temp.
I feel like a big theme of our podcast in the last few episodes has been how hot we are. And I fear that's not going to change anytime soon.
I think if anything, it's going to increase.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Another theme in our podcast is that I think we obviously spiral a lot, hence the name of the podcast. And a lot of that is spiraling down. But I think we always like to end on a more positive note. And I think this actually has been quite a balanced episode. And I think there's a lot of criticism of kind of how sport it maybe is set up, of some of the maybe sports washing that happens. Obviously, like the World Cup has been a world-class example of how to pollute the atmosphere by like flying all around the shop to play some football. And, you know, kind of sponsors are fairly questionable. But I think there's also lots of examples where sporting competitions, to our point earlier, like people really trying to do the right thing. And I went to Wimbledon, whenever it was, 2 weeks ago. Did the whole queue, was there at 4 a.m, didn't get any sleep.
You're such a good queuer. I'm so impressed.
I'm so English.
So British.
Well, honestly, so we queued. Sorry, this is a real tangent. Got there at 4 a.m. to queue for Wimbledon. Got in at, I think, 11. So, you know, what's that? 7 hours of queuing. I also queued for an hour and a half to get a cup of coffee. Then I queued
Is that
for
a
another.
joke?
That's
No,
pretty long.
not a
Yeah,
joke, not
that
a
is
joke. That was, to be
intense.
fair, that hour and a half was while we were in the queue to get in, so it was, like,
Mm,
not additional queue time that counts in my
mm.
7 hours of queuing. But then when we got into Wimbledon, we then queued to get on court 3 for maybe only, like, half an hour, 40 minutes. And then we got in the queue for centre court tickets, which we got towards the end of the day. My point being, all I did at Wimbledon was queue and watched some tennis, maybe.
What would you say your split is?
Horrendous.
If it was like 80-20 or
I mean, to be fair, we were there from, like, 11 till, like, 9 p.m.
1
So
hour of tennis in that time.
I saw a ball. I saw a singular
1 cup of
ball.
coffee, 1 hour of tennis.
I don't know. I would say to anyone, it is very worth it. The queue is very fun. Wimbledon is very fun.
Mm.
And Wimbledon uses, like, one of my favorite sustainability, like, cool startups, which is Notpla, like the seaweed packaging. Kim and I are obsessed with them.
I
We
love
went
Doppler. Shout out to them.
Love them so much. We went to a conference a few years ago and they were there handing out their, like, Notpla packaging for olive oil, which is like single-use olive oil sachets. And you, like, rip the top off and then it decomposes. And I had one of those in my bag. This is, like, probably the best test for any product, I think, for about a month. And it was fine.
No leak.
No leak. I forgot about it for a month, which is bad of
And
me.
you were
But
like jamming your laptop on that thing every day at your previous job. But like, it was not like a zen environment for that almost like kidney bean of olive oil to just like stay in your
mm-mm.
bag. And it just like stood the test of time. It was so good.
that's a
Yeah.
real risk of just, like that's a lot of faith you had in that seaweed.
Yeah, I think it was less faith I had in seaweed and more I forgot it was in my bag.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
But we'll go with that I had faith in it
Yeah,
because
it was an
I
experiment
do.
on
Mm.
durability.
They
It
also
was.
had like sports drinks in almost like bubbles.
Yeah.
So they had like little bubbles of Notpla material around like Lucozade type drinks. So they were just like, you've popped them in and then just like instant hydration, which I think is so fun. And I guess at the Paris Marathon this year, they did something similar whereby I think they did have some single use plastic bottles, but they also encouraged a lot of the runners to just bring reusable like soft bottles or just like lots and lots of stations along the route to refill, which I thought
That's
was great because when I did the London Marathon, like the amount of single-use plastic was pretty insane.
Yeah, it's pretty dire. Congrats. That's really cool that you did it. That's amazing.
Thank you. Just drop that in there.
Yeah.
Did the London Marathon. Never again. Never again.
You did it. Speaking of Notpla, another example that they worked with the UEFA's Champions League, with Just Eat and Doritos to do their like I think it must have been their nachos packaging. You know when you like go and you get takeaway food from like a food truck. So
Yeah.
Notpla worked with UEFA and Doritos on that, which is cool.
So
That's so
cool. Just such a no-brainer. I feel like when we've gone to sporting events where they've had their packaging, it's not like anything is different at all. Like, I don't know if the price is significantly different or what, but surely it just is like an absolute no-brainer.
There probably is some kind of price difference just on economies of scale, but at the same time,
Mm.
in the long run, like if we just all switch over, then, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. We love seaweed.
We
Plug
love seaweed.
Notpla.
And I think
Yeah.
love Notpla. Honestly, really hope they listen to this podcast because we love you. But I feel like that idea of like Just Eat, Champions League and Notpla like collaborating is really interesting. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about sponsorships. And there is clearly like opportunity to leverage that in a really interesting way. And this is my very, very neat tangent into the Substack article that you published around kind of how brands can have like very meaningful sponsorships. And I think it was focusing specifically on like Qatar Airways. And I personally really loved it. I thought it was really interesting. I would love you to talk us through your thinking behind how kind of sporting events like the World Cup, like FIFA, can use these partnerships in really like interesting ways and creative ways to be more sustainable, but also just like engage people in sustainability more broadly.
Yeah. So I think so far in the industry, sustainability has very much been driven by compliance or operational cost savings.
Mm.
Um, and I just really strongly believe that the next stage of evolution is going to be using sustainability as a source of creativity and as a commercial advantage. So I think we're going to start seeing a lot of sponsors wanting to actually build meaningful programs in communities with the sports rights holders that they're sponsoring. And I think there's some really cool ways that they can do this. I think in the past, sustainability has been seen as super dry and super boring and just like, here are the facts, here are the stats. But actually, there's like really fun things if you treat it as a creative exercise. Um,
Mm.
and like, I think yeah, I mean, like, if I had been in charge of the World Cup's portfolio, I would have done it very differently. I mean, like, in an ideal world, there's so many positive outcomes and legacies to be built with the sponsor portfolio that they had. Um,
Mhm.
but I think you just have to get really creative with it. So I was reading actually about the water, the hydration breaks and like water stress just more widely. And I think that actually the hydration breaks, just kind of coming back to that for a second, was a massive missed opportunity for communicating on climate change and why you need the hydration breaks, etc. But they could have used it to highlight like a positive community initiative or, you know, water efficiency technology or
Yeah.
something positive, right? And even better, what they could have done is build something around water stewardship with their partners.
Mm.
So, what a fact I found out, I didn't realize this, but 8 to 11 of the 16 host cities face water stress.
Damn.
Wow.
That's
Not
I
good.
suppose not
isn't that?
surprising when you think about where they are, but that's
But
crazy.
why wasn't that like, okay, we all need to unite for this cause that's affecting
Mhm.
all the communities that we're going into? Like, why wasn't there a program built around that that was like
Yeah.
deep and widespread? They do have I was looking at their strategy and they do address water, but I don't think they pulled in their sponsors in ways that they could have. I mean, what they could have
Yeah.
done is get AB InBev and Coca-Cola, who have really strong water stewardship programs and water replenishment programs. They could have built out entire programs in the communities within those host cities to basically either replenish watersheds or implement technology, water efficiency technology, or share their knowledge. And they could have talked about that during the hydration breaks
That would have
and
been
like
so
a
cool.
campaign about it and like make it all about water. Like it could have been better, you know?
Yeah.
Um
What I'm hearing from this, FIFA, is that you need to hire Dominique to sort out your partnership creative strategy.
no, I would actually love that. I would love to work with a brand like that.
So
Just
cool.
PSA.
Yeah.
You're so right about like using the hydration breaks for good. You just reminded me that in the pub yesterday when we were watching the England Argentina game, every hydration break, this man came from behind the bar with a bottle of tequila and he was like, hydration break, hydration break. And he was just giving out free shots to the whole bar.
That's
And he was like,
That's a great
hydration
take on
break.
hydration
wow. Wow.
break.
That's Mexican spirit right there.
I know. I was like, I'm literally obsessed with you. But
Love that.
great, like, if chance, if that was sponsored by the tequila, that would have been a great one. But we could also use it for like water scarcity
Mm.
initiatives, water stewardship from the big sponsors, like you said, that like could have done so much more with that campaigning time.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're going to run an ad, you might as well run a campaign that says something and like does something, right?
Yeah.
I was looking at their whole sponsorship portfolio and I got really excited about all the different things that each of them could do. Like you could have done a lot around circular economy and fan engagement with Adidas. You could have done like a whole, a pop-up shirt swap shop
Mm.
in like the fan engagement zones in the cities where like you know how that moment between players where they like swap shirts at the end of a game sometimes you could do that but like with strangers and like get each other to meet each other and like and build a whole campaign around that. I mean, I didn't know this, but Dove, so Unilever sponsor the World Cup, and they launched a refillable deodorant at the start of the year. They could have used all the hype and all the conversation all around extreme heat and high temperatures to build campaigns around the refill products,
Yeah.
but they haven't. Like, they could have been
Such a
giving
missed
that out.
opportunity.
Yeah, they could have been
Mm.
giving those out at events, you know?
Yeah, you're so right.
And I feel like
Um,
you're so right in this idea that like we talk about it a lot. And I think a big part of us wanting to do this podcast is because oftentimes the way people consume sustainability in the general public is very dry. It can be really dull. And like we have not been able to crack telling that in a really interesting way. It's starting to come through. Like Kim and I did an episode recently about Hot Mess, which is like a new musical in London about climate change. That's so cool. Like there are so many ways to be like super creative about this, and it does seem like such a missed opportunity.
I need to see that. That sounds incredible.
You
Honestly,
do.
we'll
It
go
was
again because we literally loved it. It's so
Yeah,
good.
we're such
That's another
fans.
great soundtrack. Before we started recording properly, we were all talking about High School Musical, and Hot Mess, the musical soundtrack, is like on par, unbelievable.
I've had it on repeat.
Yeah, get into it. It's a good
Wow.
time.
Okay. That's on my bucket list now, my summer bucket list to go.
Yeah.
Nice. Excellent.
I loved in your Substack where you were talking about sustainable aviation fuel, because I feel like there's just been so many like horrendous statistics that have come out of this World Cup about the air miles, the carbon that it's generated. Like I saw a stat, I think on the BBC, that was saying that the estimated emissions for this World Cup is like 9 million tons of carbon. And the Qatar World Cup, I think, was like 3. So just absolutely insane in terms of the air miles that each team's done, the air miles that all of the fans have done. So I would just love to hear a bit more about your SAF, potential SAF campaign, that would just like bring light to that issue, but also like positively talk about a potential solution.
Yeah, so generally with sport, fan travel accounts for roughly about 70% of any event, right? So
Mm.
it's such a massive carbon hotspot, and it needs to be solved very much at a local level, which is really difficult to do when you run something as big as World Cup, especially if you're operating across 3 countries and they all need to,
Yeah.
be moving so much. So how do you change that? Well, first you don't design a World Cup like that.
Mm.
You design it with efficiency and travel logistics in mind, usually in an ideal world. But failing that, say we do have this big wicked problem of how do we reduce air miles? You can use sustainable aviation fuel, which is not a perfect solution yet, but it does significantly reduce carbon emissions. The issue with sustainable aviation fuel is that there's actually not enough production globally, and it needs to scale super, super fast.
So sustainable aviation fuel, or sometimes we kind of like refer to it as SAF in the industry, is kind of branded as this like cleaner, renewable alternative to standard jet fuel. Normal jet fuel is obviously super carbon intensive, and this is one of the innovative technology or alternatives that are out there that can start to try and bring the emissions from the aviation industry down. It's basically like produced using a couple of different methods, like waste oils from cooking oil, industrial grease, animal fats, kind of like waste products from oily processes.
Mm.
Also like biomass, so like agricultural or like forestry waste also feeds into sustainable aviation fuel or SAF production. And then there's also some more like synthetic e-fuels that are going into the SAF pipeline.
As you were saying that, that actually reminded me, especially the cooking oil side of that, which is so I've always talked about SAF in terms of biomass and agricultural byproducts and waste. But actually, from a cooking oil point of view, McDonald's have a used cooking oil program and they convert it to fuel. And what they should have done is expanded the program for all FIFA vehicles and all their fleets and team buses. That's something that they could have done. But yes, from an aviation fuel perspective, Qatar Airways are really keen to grow their SAF production capabilities. Now, the issue is that it can't be produced en masse everywhere. There's only certain places where it's being done, and we need to scale production. So I think that there's a real big opportunity for Qatar Airways to partner almost with Aramco through the FIFA lens, to team up to develop a program that invests in the US Midwest, which has a massive agricultural belt that produce SAF, actually. And they could use their power to accelerate the production and deployment of sustainable aviation fuel and actually use it for team travel. There's a side of this that can be for that's fan facing, where you provide incentives and using FIFA to leverage that. There's just there's just a lot that could be done in this space. And it's super exciting. I mean, that was part of the work that I did at F1 was working with DHL and Qatar Airways to build up a SAF framework. And I think the most recent F1 report came out, and it's ended up saving over 20,000 tons of CO2 in like the past less than 2 years. So it does have significant effects. And yeah, it just could be like a really positive, feel good story that honestly, long term, they've invested in infrastructure that actually lasts and builds up SAF production capabilities, but also invests in the agricultural industry in the States. So it's really a
Such a
win win
nice
win win win.
story.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so nice. I love that. And
Wonderful,
everyone should go away and read Dominique's Substack. We will link it in the show notes because I loved it. I wish that I could put Substacks on Goodreads because I would be giving that 5 stars and sharing it with all my friends. No, I truly, really thought it was so interesting. And like you said, just such a creative way of like looking at a problem, using like sponsor collaboration to address it at a local level, making it relevant to like the locations in which these sports are played in. Just like such amazing thinking and like so creative. I loved it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Very good.
I mean, I feel that there's a really exciting future for the industry to have a real lasting impact. And yeah, I honestly, I just feel so grateful. I feel so lucky that I get to work on projects with agencies, with sponsors, with startups, with rights holders, to unlock the sports industry's potential to make the world a better place. And just kind of helping inspire people to see sustainability as a creative brief rather than a tick box exercise. So yeah, I'm really excited about what's going to happen in that space.
Make sustainability sexy again,
Eh,
maybe? Has it
oh,
ever been sexy? Maybe 2019 was a good time.
2019, it was a little bit sexy, I reckon.
a little bit, a little bit,
A little bit sexy.
I think that's
Oh,
a really good place to wrap the episode. Like we've left it on such a like a positive, optimistic note of what could come in the future, and I love it.
Too. Oh,
Yay!
thank you so much. That was so, so interesting. I hope you enjoyed being our first guest.
And an incredible first guest you
Such an
were.
incredible first guest.
I had
Hard
a
to top.
blast. Thank you so much for listening to me talk about this because it's definitely very layered and it takes a lot of time to kind of unpick. So thank you for being so patient, so engaged, and yeah, just great to chat to.
I mean, this is your audience. I'm feeling multiple pub trips coming up where we dive into each of these areas we've discussed today in a heck of a lot more detail.
That sounds like a plan. Let's do it while it's warm.
Yeah. Perfect. So good. Fabulous. Well, if you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and share with anyone that you think would be interested. And don't forget to share your spirals with us on our social media channels, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, you name it, we're on it.
Amazing. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.